move around a little bit. Let me check on our Zoomers. Can you hear me okay, Zoomers? Everybody good? Okay, you want to stand up, stretch, move around? What do you need to do? I want you to do one thing for me. Look around, and if you see somebody you haven't seen in a while or somebody you think that's new, smile at them. Just give them a good old cheese. There's a cheese, there's a cheese, there's a cheese. Yeah. That's pretty timid. Come on, folks. Well, good evening, and thank you for being here. I'm Larry Dawalt. I am one of 6 Dharma leaders, and looking around, we're all here tonight. We've got a quorum. We should take a vote on something. Anybody want to vote on something? Usually I'm the one not here, so it's nice to be here. Tonight I want to share some thoughts about going beyond the grip of fear. And those of you who attended the retreat in August may recall some of these thoughts, but I wanted to share them tonight because I think this is an area that is more relevant than ever in the times in which we live. I'll begin with a quote that I learned way back in high school. And yes, that was a few years ago for someone who graduated from High Point Central class of 72. Go Bison. It's a simple but a powerful quote that was spoken by Franklin Delano Roosevelt during his first inaugural address, March 4th, 1933. One of the most difficult periods in American history was going on, the Great Depression. He began his 20-minute long address with these words. First of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Anybody else remember that quote? The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. At face value, it sort of sounds like a political slogan. But if we look more deeply, we'll find that Roosevelt was speaking to the timeless truth that resonates deeply within the Buddhist teachings, that fear, left unchecked, can be more dangerous than the crisis itself. Fear, left unchecked, can be more dangerous than the crisis itself. Roosevelt was trying to calm a country in panic. Banks were collapsing, unemployment was widespread, people were afraid. But his reminder was that the greatest obstacle wasn't the economy, it was fear that paralyzed action and eroded trust. He was in a way pointing towards something that we all know well from the Dharma, that suffering doesn't just come from what happens, but from how we react to what happens. He went on to say the greatest danger a society faces during a crisis is not the crisis itself, but the fear and panic it creates, and the depression led to a run on banks. People withdrew their money not because the bank was failing, but because they feared it would. And that fear actually caused more banks to fail. And it sort of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. In our personal lives, the same things can happen. We fear rejection, so we pull back from intimacy and end up alone. We fear failure, so we don't try and we miss opportunities for growth. When allowed to dominate our decisions, fear can create the very suffering we hope to avoid. So let's look at some types of fear. See if you relate to any of these. Sorry. I'm not looking at everybody. Hello, I know you're there. Thank you for being here. Okay, here's some common fears. Animal fears. Anybody afraid of spiders? Snakes? Okay, we got an honest person over there. I'm afraid of snakes. I'm with you, brother. There we go. Dogs. Certain dogs. There you go. And insects. Natural environment fears. Fear of heights. There's a height, yep. thunder and lightning, fear of the dark, fear of flying in closed spaces, public speaking. I won't raise my hand. Medical related fears, needles, injections, there's some there, surgical procedures, blood. We had a student at my son's high school that he was academically a star, and he was in shop class, or they were doing some sort of repair class, and everybody knew, this guy was going to really do well. They thought he might be a doctor. And he cut himself right across here, and he looked at it, and we found out he wasn't going to be a doctor. Very quick test. The Buddha specifically talked about 3 fears in the teaching on the 5 remembrances. And I know you hear that a lot from we as Dharma leaders. It's a valuable teaching. Don't hesitate to study it over and over. But fear of aging, losing looks, flexibility, mobility, fear of illness, fear of death. And fear of death is a fundamental human fear, not only for us, but for our loved ones and the process of dying. And I can't tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of different views I've seen of that in the 30 plus years I've worked in hospice care. And everybody approaches it differently. But one thing that's valuable about the teaching is that you get confirmation over and over that this is going to happen. Having worked in hospice, I have found the absolute 100% cause of death. It's birth. And the list goes on. Fear of failure, fear of being alone, fear of social judgment, a very common fear that involves anxiety of being negatively evaluated, scrutinized, or embarrassed in social situations. In his book, A Calendar of Wisdom, which is a book on daily thoughts to nourish the soul, the author Tolstoy says, some people live and act according to their own thoughts, and some according to the thoughts of others. This is a crucial distinction between people. What will they think? And along this line, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, we do not let ourselves react to the words, or when we do not let ourselves react to the words and actions of others, when we're able to keep our minds calm and peaceful, the fetters of internal formations cannot be made, and we'll experience greater joy and happiness. Now, one of the biggest fears is the fear of the unknown. This includes many things, but especially the fear of uncertainty. In the Book of Awakening, does that name ring a bell? Anybody know the Book of Awakening? Yeah, there's a couple. Great book. Arthur Mark Nepo writes that fear gets its power from our not looking at either the fear or what we're afraid of. Remember that attic or closet door behind which something terrifying waited? And the longer we didn't look, the harder it was to open that door. As a boy, he writes, this obsessed me until I would avoid that part of the house. But finally, when no one was home, I felt compelled to face the unknown. I stood before that attic door for the longest time, my heart pounding. It took all my small inner boy strength to open it. I waited at the threshold. Nothing happened. I inched my way in to the darkness, and my breathing slowed, and to my surprise, my eyes got accustomed to the dark, and pretty soon I was exploring old musty boxes and found pictures of my grandfather, my father's father, the only one in the family that I'm like. And seeing those pictures opened me to new aspects of my spirit. It seems whatever the door, whatever our fear, be it love or truth or even the prospect of death, We all have the choice. Avoid the house or open the door and find out more about ourselves. So what are some of the most common methods people may use to make their fears seem greater than they actually are? One was just what we read from Mark Nepo, avoiding the fear, staying away from it as much as possible. Catastrophizing, imagining the worst possible outcome. My dear grandmother Norris from Cramerton, North Carolina, may she rest in peace, sat on the porch the one year that I lived with her rocking. I must have died 1,000 times in her thoughts as she sat there rocking over and over. But we can do this. Overgeneralization, taking a single negative experience and applying it to all similar situations. Everybody does it. Everybody's afraid. Tone it down a little bit, especially with the negative self-talk. Constantly telling oneself, I can't do this. I can't handle this. I'm going to fail. This is too difficult. This reinforces basically a sense of powerlessness and hopelessness. And let's face it, sometimes there is drama going on between our ears. In their new book, The Daily Buddhist, I think it came out June, July, Pema Sherpa and Brenda Barker write, rather than getting swept up in the drama of your mind, try to recognize the pattern of your thoughts. Note how they arise, momentarily affect you, then naturally dissipate without any real-world consequence. By examining the insubstantial nature of your thoughts, you can remain joyful, seeing the stories in your mind and the made-up drama as it truly is. So grab some popcorn, sit back and watch the drama of your mind unfold. You probably heard it said, if you want to find out what your mind is like, sit down and watch it. Fear can be complicated by the fact that it's also a physical emotion. As I was reading the list of fears, I could see some of you just kind of cringing a little bit, especially when we went to snakes. Some of you felt snakes. It's okay, there's not one here. But when this fear arises, all kinds of reactions can happen in the body. The heartbeat speeds up, stomach juices get churning, you start talking faster, everything moves faster, and we often confuse the physical reactions for the mental state. Years ago, I think it was 1986, I had an endoscopy. Know what endoscopy is? Some of you do. It's when they take this great big wire, I guess it's a wire tube, they run it down your throat and they look in there to see what is in there. And what they were looking for in me was the effects of 4 years of being a youth pastor. And what taking those kids out for every sort of thing they should not be eating and I should not be eating did to my stomach. So they give me the little juice, they get me all nice and relaxed, they get ready to go, and the doctor is there, and he's got this scope he's holding up, and I look up, and right attached to the other side of it was another scope. And I said, what's that for? He said, oh, that's the teaching scope. When I'm teaching an intern or a resident, I let them look through and see what's going on, and we talk about it. Well, I didn't have a lot to do, so I said, can I look? He looked around the nurse, I guess so. So he turns it around, and then down we go. Down, down, down. You okay? And the further down he got, once he got in there, I saw what I thought was a white volcano just popping, and it was stomach acid, and it seemed to be bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. You see that? And quickly he told me, and I later read about this and clarified it, about an experiment that they had done with a cat showing it to two different dogs. The first dog they brought in to the cat in the cage was a dog that was friendly, that he knew, no reaction. The second one they brought in was one that had in the neighborhood that had supposedly at one time had attacked him. And the bully dog created off the chart secretion of stomach acid that lasted long after the encounter was over. In other words, a single flash of fear floods the mind, and even though it recedes, it sets in motion a huge series of physical reactions that sometimes may take a long time to settle down. And this is where the breath and meditation can help us calm some of the physical aspects of fear. You don't have to be on a cushion. If you're experiencing deep fear, go to that breath. Use it and let it begin to calm. Tanisara Bhikkhu, who is a abbot of a monastery in San Diego, writes that you need to work down into exactly where your attachments are. He says this is precisely the Buddhist take on fear, and it comes from clinging and attachment. Maybe clinging to safety or being attached to peace. And the clinging is threatened by impermanence, stress, and suffering, and the fact that there are things beyond our control. But the purpose of our training is to learn how not to let our happiness be based on things beyond our control. Because as long as we entrust our happiness to them, we're setting ourselves up for suffering, setting ourselves up for fear. These days, there are many fears. Many of our fears are about uncertainty. What's going on in other parts of the world? What's going on in our own country, in our own state, or even our own city? What might happen next? Is it ever going to end? While I certainly try to remember things like impermanence and the truth of things arising and passing away, I must say that there are times, especially in the midst of hearing about actions that seem to harm the innocent and weak among us, when I truly have to examine whether or not I can keep silent and not express my fears. Because sometimes I think they're not fears, they're it's genuine concern, and it's concerns that are supported by the Dharma. And don't be afraid to express concerns that are supported by the Dharma. And fortunately, though, the Buddha knew fear well. It's one thing about the practice. He described fear, worry, and anxiety as forms of dukkha, which is sometimes defined as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. One of the books I'm reading now is, the definition this guy writes, Lee Brasington, is bummer. Isn't that nice? Dukkha is bummer. And he says you have to put the A in front of it sometimes. Dukkha is a bummer, but dukkha is bummer. And it's a core concept, and it's not just about physical pain, but it's about emotional distress and the inherent instability of existence due to impermanence. And impermanence is something that is a basic teaching. It's a core concept, and it's crucial for liberation from suffering because it highlights the futility of clinging to things that are inherently temporary. And impermanence means that nothing in the world, from physical thoughts to from physical objects to thoughts and emotions, is permanent. And when we cling to the idea of permanence, and I believe Debbie talked about this a little last week, when you cling to the idea of permanence or trying to hold on to things as they are, that leads to suffering. And one thing that is very valuable about this practice that we do is we are in the business of finding out how we can eliminate suffering, especially the suffering that perhaps we cause. So the Buddha offered a fourfold path out of fear, not by removing every danger, but by transforming our relationship to fear. 4 things. First, mindfulness. Through mindfulness, we observe fear without becoming it. We say, there is fear rather than I am afraid. And even this small shift is profound because it creates space. It begins to see fear as a visitor and not something that imprisons us. Whatever we say we are, we can be more than that or we can be less than that. And seeing this helps to calm us. Non-attachment. Most of our fear comes from clinging, wanting things to stay the same. But life is uncertain. Right effort. Instead of avoiding fear, we meet it with wise effort. We take it on. I've had some fears that I have had to take on. You can probably think of some that you have had to take on. You ever have a fear of eating certain things? Well, let's go to right understanding. We reflect on the causes of suffering and we see how it has been created. I'm going to talk for a second about the fear of asparagus. Now, I had, for many years, had a fear of asparagus. And this went way back to West Elementary School in Cherryville, North Carolina. Now, for those of you who are Gaston County natives, I'm talking about Cherryville. The asparagus they served was like a great big round pencil that you had in kindergarten. And it was rubbery. And if you dared pick it up, you could hit somebody with it. Later, I found out if you buy the kind that's thin like pencils, and you put it on the grill, and you put spray butter on it, and you put some garlic and other little sauces on it, and you don't let it burn, it's a lot better. Name the fear. 4 practical ways to go beyond the grip. Name the fear. Naming it helps reduce its power. I don't like asparagus. Well, try it. Try it like this. Break it down. Fear often feels overwhelming because we look at the entire mountain. Don't eat asparagus. Well, I just don't eat vegetables. And we generalize and we take it further and further and further. But take just one step. And tonight I would challenge you to take one step by finding the smallest action you can take that would let go of even a portion of a fear. Think of fear and what's a small step you could take? Just one small step that would help you to perhaps let go of a portion of that fear. And then stay present. Don't get lost in a direction which you are no longer traveling. Joseph Goldstein, in his book, A Practical Guide to Awakening, Mindfulness, A Practical Guide to Awakening, writes about the present moment. He said, after one of my public talks, a woman who had been on several retreats came up to me and said she had been on a cruise. And in her room was a map of the ship with an arrow and a caption saying, "You are here." She said for the rest of the voyage, wherever she was and whatever she was doing, those words became something she could repeat over and over. You are here. And then don't overthink, especially to the point of negative self-talk, because overthinking can bring a lot of suffering. President Roosevelt said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The Buddha might have said, fear is not the enemy, it is a teacher. In the end, the goal is not to banish fear, but to no longer be governed by it, to trust in the unfolding, to go beyond the grip of fear and learn to confidently meet fear with courage, even in the midst of uncertainty.